of CORTEZ. So NeWest Press is an independent publishing outfit located in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And every day I've been reading a little bit of a book to give you a taste of some of our backlist and maybe take your mind off of stuff that's happening over lunch. So Sea of CORTEZ, as I mentioned, the 10th book in the Detective Lane series by Garry Ryan. So this is a series of books about a Calgary detective who has things going on in his personal life as well as his professional. He has a large, especially by this point in the time, large family and friends sort of in his corner. And he's got a bit of a reputation as a manhunter. He's good at tracking people down, and he has a special interest in children's safety, often trying to find people who've kidnapped children, that kind of thing. This one's a little bit different. It's mostly about Lane and his partner. What was his partner's name? Arthur. His partner Arthur. They go to Mexico, and while they're there, they get caught up in a drug cartel's actions happening. And as well, there's a series of assassinations that start happening in Calgary while they're gone. So the two cases are linked together. Here's the back cover copy. After a series of assassinations rocks Calgary's underworld, Detective Lane is conscripted along with his husband Arthur into working undercover to seek out links in the Mexico-Canada drug connection and stop the violence. As tensions mount back in Canada and outright war on the street seems imminent, the laconic detective and his allies must use some unorthodox tactics to avert disaster in the Gulf of California and dismantle the cartel. So that is the Gulf on the left side of Mexico by Baja California. Here's some other praise for his other books. Matanzas, the writing, particularly in Lane's inner narrative, sparkles, Publishers Weekly. And Sam Wee, Blast of the Independence and Invisible Dead author, says Matanzas is Ryan's best to date. Glycerin, the one I talked about the other day, Shanann Spritz in Forward Reviews said it was a dynamite book. And for Foxed, earlier than Glycerin, Alberta Views author Katarina Edwards says it's a good, fast read with a pertinent story, believable characters, lashings of violence, and consistent suspense. So, yeah, I'll give you a taste here. Here's a fun picture that our designer found, kind of Day of the Dead skull. But I'll tell you all the names of the books in case you're wondering. The first one is Queen's Park, followed by The Lucky Elephant Restaurant, A Hummingbird Dance, Smoked, Malabarista, Foxed, Glycerin, Indiana Pulcinella, and Matanzas. So that's the 10 books. We've got the first 3 and then the next 3 in a combo pack ebook. So you can go pick that up if you want to get a lot of them at once. But I'll read you from this one, see what you think. Monday, November 3rd, Chapter 1. Lane looked at orange gold schooling beyond the toes of his black and red cross trainers. The kokanee rested before attempting another swim against the current and up the culvert. The pipe was a meter in diameter and ran perpendicular to the 2-lane paved road that had carried Lane and Arthur here. The highway was about 30 meters above the stream it bisected. Lane watched an exhausted fish being swept back out of the pipe and into the stream. The water's unusual olive green was visible here and there as it flowed downstream and into Lake Koocanusa. The lake was 145 kilometers long and shared by BC and Montana. It ran roughly north and south along a valley in the Kootenay Rockies. Arthur had turned off the paved road to the east side of the lake along the way to a place named Jaffrey. It was a dusty 10 degrees Celsius in a valley predominantly forested with evergreens. Lane watched the wavering gold underneath the rippling surface. These fish don't know or care what side of the border they're on. He looked west toward the lake, but all he could see was some of the creek's white water, trees, and the thick undergrowth. Arthur, Lane's partner, put his hand on Lane's shoulder. My dad brought us here when I was 8 or 9. He said Canadians didn't appreciate what is right under their noses. He called the spawning of the kokanee one of God's great miracles. They were born together, they die together, and they give life to the next generation. Arthur lifted his Blue Jays ball cap and wiped sweat off his scalp with the sleeve of his shirt. I was more interested in rocks. He bent to pick up a gray stone shaped like a boomerang. Arthur's round Mediterranean face was lit with a smile. See what I mean? Lane smiled and looked back to the gentler waters between the culvert and the rapids downstream. Thousands of kokanee waited their turn in the relatively calmer waters. I've never seen anything quite like this. What makes them gather together for generation after generation to swim upstream to spawn and die? You gotta watch out for the bears. A man stepped out of the trailer parked about 10 meters back from the stream. He wore a frayed gray faded green shirt, gray-green work pants belted with a rope, and lace-free white running shoes. The man's black hair was uncombed. His face and hands told the story of 20 or 30 years of outdoor labor. Lane smiled and pulled up the waist of his black pants. These things must be stretching. Any around today? Not so far, but they will come. Always do. The man lit a cigarette with an orange plastic lighter and inhaled a lungful. He pulled the cigarette out with his right hand and used it to point at Lane and Arthur. You guys are from... Lane lifted his chin. Calgary. And you? Just up the road, Jaffrey. Needed to get away from people for a few days. The kokanee are late, the snow is late, and everyone is arguing about climate change. The man turned, walked downstream, and disappeared behind the trailer. Arthur frowned at Lane. Scary-looking fellow. Gave us some friendly advice, though. Lane looked back at the stream where the fish turned to water from green into a shifting, shimmering red gold. Lots of food just waiting for a hungry bear. What's that? Arthur pointed downstream where the fish had to fight the white water to reach the pool below the culvert. A black bear, perched on the edge of the far bank, then waded into the stream and climbed up onto a rock where it began to scoop with the open claws of its right paw. Maybe we'd better get back to the car. Lane reached out and tugged the back of Arthur's white nylon shirt. The bear continued to fish as they watched it balance on 3 paws atop a flat rock. The bear is solitary, a hunter. The kokanee gather in a school. When they got into the car, Arthur said, We probably could have stayed and watched. The bear was totally ignoring us. The man from the trailer reappeared and zipped up his fly, and he puffed on his cigarette. He walked over to the BMW. Arthur opened his window. The man said, If you drive up the road about 6 miles, you'll find Little Sand Creek. There'll be more fish there. He turned and pointed at the busy black bear. That black bear probably won't bother you, but there's been a grizzly around this week, and he's kind of ornery. The man gave them a tip of an imaginary hat and waved as he walked back to his trailer. Lane drove up the trail. It wound its way up to the 2-lane highway. They headed north on the pavement lined with evergreen trees. The sun shone through Lane's window. He checked the odometer and made some mental calculations. 6 miles. That's about 10 kilometers. Arthur looked out his window. Dr. Keller said a holiday this winter would do us both good. He suggested some sunshine and a beach. Lane started to answer and closed his mouth. He reached to turn on the music. Arthur put his hand out to cover the radio's controls. We're going to talk. So on that sort of threatening note, Garry Ryan's 10th book in the series. I would recommend starting with the earlier ones because you kind of need to know Lane's partner, both in work and at home, and some of his family members to really get the full extent of this one. But it's a really good book. The photo is actually taken by the author. I thought that was cool, down in Baja, California. The Lane books are very enjoyable mysteries. So if you're interested in picking this up, we are still sending our print copies out through allitup.ca. So I'll put a link there where you find this. But if you're interested in an ebook version of this, just check in your e-reader. It should be wherever it is. It's easy. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.